Hello and welcome to our second episode of Awdry Corner. And today I am joined again by Mr. Luke.
Hello.
And we're also joined by Mr. Ben.
Hello, Mr. Ben.
Some of you may know of Ben as British Gypsum 4. Tell us, Ben, why is your username British Gypsum 4?
Because I quite liked it, to be honest.
You can say that. You can say it.
No, it stems from the fact that I bought myself an Andrew Barclay that happened to have that name, so it just seemed to be a good username to use.
Yeah, Ben's beaten all of us because he's bought an actual Steam loco.
Yeah, we're not talking like miniature. We're not talking like it. We're talking standard gauge here.
Yeah, unfortunately. It's not in a running condition, mind you, but yeah.
One day.
Wait, I was going to say,
yeah, one day. We'll get there one day.
bits of your engine are spread over 2 counties, aren't they?
Yeah, Lancashire and Cumbria. And it's a toss-up to say how much is it in one or the other. But just for, I don't know if people can see that.
Oh, look at that.
Excuse the poor lighting that's in my attic. But that's the works plate, one of the works plates off it anyway.
Yeah, I can see that fine. That's good.
That's lovely. Is black in the centre and red round the outside? Is that right?
No, this is it. Well, it was black originally. I've scraped this back, and it's revealed green underneath. And I think it was all green because even under the red, it seems to be green under there. So I'm guessing that's how it was painted originally. But yeah, I'll eventually get these shot blasted back so it's bare metal, and then make a decision on what colour I'm going to. Excuse the rattling. Make a decision on what colour I'm going to paint.
And your engine was based in Cumbria, wasn't it?
It was. Well, it was Westmoreland at the time. It was based at the gypsum works near Penrith called Kirby Thorpe, which is still going. And it's still linked to the settle in Carlisle, but they don't have any of their own shunters anymore. They don't need them. So mine was only there from 53 to 69, replaced by a diesel. And I don't think the diesel has lasted very long either. And I think that diesel in particular is somewhere in Scotland. I think that survived as well.
Oh, so one day there might be a little gala with your engine and the diesel one together.
Yeah. The diesel one was painted because they all got painted in white, did the diesels, with black lettering. And it looked quite smart. And I think it's still in that lettering. But I can't for the life of me remember where it went to.
Not Boness.
If they've got one, it probably is that one.
I'm trying to think if it might be, actually. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it when I visited the other year. But then again, I didn't go right round the whole museum. But something suggests in my mind that's where it is, yeah. But yeah, it's the one from Kirby Thorpe, if I remember rightly. But it worked at Kirby Thorpe. It also worked up at Cock Lakes as well, which was the other side. Because it replaced John Howe and Jay in Derbyshire. I think it was the same one. Or there was 2 of them, but yeah.
So yeah, in a year or so, you could be riding behind Ben's loco.
Yeah, if someone gives me a massive cash injection, I might get it done within a year. But we'll get there. We've got new metal works and whatever for it. So subject to another topic, another discussion, another day. But yeah, it'll get there eventually.
Coming to a heritage railway near you. So today's episode, we're pretty much going to focus on the Skarloey Railway, which we all have a fondness for. Some of us more than others. 2 of us are now modelling it. Luke's obviously got a head start on me by a long way. Last week, Luke showed us his collection of models. I think I can show my finished Duncan. There he is. Well, I say finished. He hasn't got his number plate on there on order from Narrow Planet. But yeah, there he is.
Those look lovely.
And I think I'm fairly lucky that I've got a fairly decent chassis on him. So because
No, we're both lucky in that regard.
Oh, yours is a good runner as well.
Mine's quite nice as well. I was running it last night, and yeah, can crawl very nicely.
So yeah, no, I'm really pleased with that. So on with Sir Handel next for me. So yeah, so Skarloey Railway.
It's good.
What's our? It is. Yeah, that's a good. It is good. What's our first sort of memories of the Skarloey? Do you want to start, Luke?
First memories of the Skarloey, honestly. Well, when I grew up, the latest series of Thomas to come out when I was growing up was Series 5. So, but I grew up in the gap between obviously that Magic Railroad and when the series, Hit took over and did Series 6 and all that. And there was just like a gap of nothing. So I grew up on the VHSs of Series 1 to 5 and the books as well. So I don't know what my earliest memory of the Skarloey itself is, but one of my earliest memories is in primary school, very early on, reading the complete collection and Duke the Lost Engine, which does obviously feature the Skarloey Railway, very briefly. In like passing and stuff and that, obviously that whole book I think is probably my earliest memory of the Skarloey and the Mid-Sodor, technically, yeah.
Lovely. Go on, Ben. What was your first memory?
Mine would be my mum taking me to the Furness Model Railway exhibition when it was held at the Forum 28 near the Town Hall. Going in there and buying off, which was the Tallyclin Railway North West Group, and buying off their stand. It was Little Old Engine. It was the very first book I ever had and read. And it was suddenly like, oh, there's narrow gauge engines. And I suppose that's what added to the delight of the railway series. And that would be my first memory. I think the very next book I got would be 4 Little Engines. And then followed on Mountain Engines was another one that was quite early on, which of course it briefly features in some of the stories as well. But it wasn't until much later on until I got like the Island of Sodor book and a few of the other books that sort of they all came together. And I could tell how it was all linked. But yeah, my first memory would have been getting that book at the mod for sure.
I don't think the screen wouldn't have been on you, Luke, then because you weren't talking. So
yeah.
If you want to show.
Speaking of 4 Little Engines.
Hey.
My first edition.
Well, it's funny actually because Ben and I our early memories sort of mirror each other. This is my original copy, which actually I took down to the TR back in July, Luke, when we went up the line together. And
of course, yes.
And it's not a special copy. I think it's 1987 reprint, printed under K and Ward. 1986 reprint, but that was my first memory. Some of the colours have gone a bit weird. Cora is pink and blue in one of the illustrations. Strange, but yeah, that was my first introduction. And it's strange. I started with that, and I read Gallant Old Engines all before TV series. So I think I've said before, I wasn't impressed as a 10-year-old when the Skarloey engines were all multicoloured liveries, because I grew up with them being, all red and rusty in black. But yeah, I read that, and then I read Gallant. That's my original copy of Gallant. Yeah, because my dad told me pronounce Rheneas wrong, so for years I was calling him Rheneas.
Oh no!
And TV series came along, and it was like, oh, I presume that's the correct spelling. But,
and then you got Johnny Morris coming in as a wild card with Rheneas.
Rheneas, yeah. You see, apparently Wilbert was present during the Johnny Morris and Willie Rushton recordings. So there is part of me that thinks, well, maybe it is Rheneas because Wilbert was there, and would he have corrected him?
Yeah.
But then saying that,
sorry, Tom.
I was just going to say, but then Willie Rushton says Farquhar instead of Farquhar as well, which. Sorry, Ben, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that in reading Between the Lines by Christopher Awdry, he does mention that the emphasis on the pronunciation of Skarloey and Rheneas is a short, sharp first syllable. So like Scar, Ren, and then Aeus. So Rheneas is how you would pronounce it.
So TV.
But he does mention that in reading Between the Lines.
So TV series will be correct in that Rheneas. Well, that makes sense. Although we've all, I think all three of us have agreed on it. Christopher Awdry says that it's Arlesburg, but we all prefer Arlesborough.
Yeah. That's how I'd say it, at least.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
I'd agree, because you've got Edinburgh, and Edinburgh spelt the back end B-U-R-G-H is the same. So, yeah, Arlesborough.
So, actually, yeah, so they were my sort of... Well, interestingly, I think it was Little Old Engine, and I think, like you, Ben, Mountain Engines was another one for me. And I think I remember noticing, they're the same characters that were in Little Old Engine.
But for me, it was at the time, it was going back the following year, I think it must have been when I got Mountain Engines, and it was like, this isn't Thomas, this isn't Gordon or any of them. It's a new set of engines, and that's why I got it quite quickly. It was that was another book that was quite early on in my collection before I got like the rest of them. But yeah, then I noticed that they were different to Skarloey as well. So
Mountain Engines.
And I like oddities.
Mountain Engines was also my first experience at seeing the Scottish twins not in black. I hadn't read Stepney Bluebell Engine. And then it was like, that's Donald, but Donald's blue. Oh, why is that? And again, I think this is what starts off at that age. You think, this is different. I want to learn more why it's different from the TV series. So, but yeah, no, I think, I think that's interesting. We've sort of all got similar early memories. Suppose we have to sort of talk about characters. Who's our favourite? I know. I'll start with you, Luke, but I know Ben and I have the same favourite character. Skarloey.
Oh, for Skarloey, honestly, like, favourite character, I'm always kind of, like, I'm trying to kind of separate the TR locos out of my head, but they're so similar. Rheneas is always, like, a top for me. I just, like, in the story, he's always just good, and the design of the loco, and I've got like personal connection with like Dolgark being the first loco that I cleaned and had a footplate ride on at the Teleclan as well. So there are other things, but like, so it's probably Rheneas, honestly, but I do very much like Sir Handel as well, and Duncan. I just like the ones that are just very arsey.
You like the awkward ones.
Yeah. It's fun. They're fun.
When you think back to the books, though, if you count how many stories Rheneas is in, it's not very many because it's not. He's away being repaired, and he's in a way it's a shame really because until Gallant Old Engine comes along, he's hardly ever referenced.
Yeah,
I think I'd say it's a similar thing. Rheneas is probably the one I have less sort of a connection with growing up reading the books because. Like I said, Little Old Engine was my first one, and then Gallant Old Engine. And then I probably was in my teens before I read For Little Engine. And obviously, Rheneas is just literally shown being put onto that, onto the flat truck. So, again, I didn't really connect with Rheneas in the same way that I connected with the other characters. What I was going to ask you is, I noticed you put something on Twitter about this. That handrail on number 2 on Dolgark. Am I right? Yeah. It's particularly hot.
Yeah, so when you're cleaning the locos in the morning, the first thing you do on Dolgark is that handrail on top because it gets hottest the quickest. And when you're if you're going and cleaning Dolgark, you don't want to touch that handrail because it will burn you because it's directly on top of the boiler.
So if for any reason you have to get up onto the running plate while it's in working use in the day, you need to make sure you've got a rag or something if you're going to hold on to that.
Rag or gloves, yeah, 100%. 100%. And Dolgok is a lot of brass to clean.
Yeah.
A lot of brass to clean. But it's always very satisfying when you've finished.
Ben, go on, favourite character. I think I know, unless you're going to do a wild card on me here, and it's going to be completely not what I think, but I think I know what you've said before.
It's an easy one, really, because I've always, in any sort of, or more shows, I've always preferred like the American things. So it's Skarloey. But I think as well, it's the oldest engine. I like the design of Skarloey.
Is he breaking up for you as well, Tom?
Like going to TR reinforced that. I've always behind one more than any of the others were behind. But yeah, actually, I've done that driver for a tenner, and I drove Dolgok. All right, only a short distance, but it's such a silky smooth ride. I can see like cruise like that engine and appreciate it, and it's nice sort of being briefly hands on with that. No, my favourite character's got to be Skarloey.
You probably aren't aware of this, Ben. Your internet started to break up. I'll be honest, you did sound like you were drunk. It sounded a bit. But I think we got the gist on that. It's Skarloey. And actually, yeah, exactly the same for me. It surprised me in recent months as I've started to research the TR in how obviously, number one, in the early preservation years, obviously number one wasn't in use. So it surprised me because in the Railway series, there's a lot of emphasis on Skarloey. And that's obviously the difference that Skarloey, although was worn out, clearly could be steamed and obviously was in Old Faithful. Whereas obviously in the TR, it's very much made clear. Am I right, Ben? I think it was last time Talaklind was steamed prior to preservation was 46. And I think there's a line in Railway Adventure by Tom Rolt where it basically says that whoever the driver was who steamed Talaklind that day, I think it was to rescue number 2 that had derailed.
Yeah, it was a rescue mission.
And it said whoever fired drove Talaklind that day was a very brave man indeed.
Yeah, literal bomb on wheels, because the boiler and everything in the firebox was completely just, shafted. It was one bad bump, one bad thing could have broke something and gone.
There's a lovely interview, I think it's with Di Jones, who was an early driver on the TR, and he mentioned that I think his father was a driver before preservation.
Yeah.
And I think, Ben, we've spoken about this, that they used to try and fill, was it some of the gaps in the firebox with like oats like mixed up, like a mix of,
oh yeah, like a porridge mixture kind of thing.
And apparently when it was like being steamed, he just got this smell of porridge oats coming up.
I would actually question how useful that would have been when you're talking like even just at 50 psi.
Well, it'd dry out very quickly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's not metal, is it? It's you're talking about like pressures that would soon get rid of that if it had to. I can see why they've done it. It's like putting an egg in your radiator in the car. The idea is to sort of like block any small little gaps and stuff. Like Radweld, that's designed for a get you home kind of repair, and then replace your radiator.
In fairness, actually, that sums up really, I was going to say, and with the TR in those early days, it was a sort of get you home sort of fix for a few times on the
100%.
I mean, we've got to talk about the link to the TR. I mean, was it 1952? Yeah. Awdry first volunteered on the.
I believe so. I think it was the year after the railway started as a preservation thing. Just quickly, just going back, you mentioned Di Jones. Fun fact is as you say, his father was on the railway beforehand as well. And Di's son and grandson are both still involved very heavily with the railway. His son David Jones is the current kind of like chief mechanical. He's essentially not chief mechanical engineer. There's someone, but like he's essentially permanent staff in the workshop, looking after the locos and everything, on pay, and driver as well. And his son Tom is a fireman as well, and essentially taking in the footsteps of the family as for the railway pre-preservation and preservation up until now, and continues to. So it's quite a fun thing.
Lovely. Yeah, so I was going to say about with the Awdry connection there. Most of the stories are linked to events on the TR. Not all of them. Obviously, the one that comes to mind is Sir Handel and the Steamroller. That was in Ireland. I think that happened as a photo.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
The photo I've seen shows that if that had been illustrated in the books, I think George would have been a write-off. the Steamroller, but it's very interesting reading things. And actually, a friend of mine sent me his thoughts. I'd asked about the steaming qualities of the engines on the TR, and my friend sent me his thoughts on it because he's a cleaner. And the one thing he said was, we got to number 3, which is obviously Sir Hayden or Sir Handel in the books, and the words were temperamental. And I thought that sums up number 3 perfectly as being a temperamental engine. Luke, have you worked on number 3?
Yeah, good few times. I've fired number 3 a few times as well, and yeah, I've thankfully had some couple of nice days on number 3, honestly. But has caught me out. Yeah, it is definitely a temperamental loco. Some days work fine, other days will break everything.
The best memory I've got of number 3 is it was a nighttime run up to Abergynolwyn, and they were doing trains through the night. And I always remember it pitch black. We're in the front coach just behind the engine, and me and another friend, and just listening to it going up through Bringlass, up through the forest, well, where the wooded section is, up through Dolgoch, and the sound was just phenomenal. You couldn't see a thing. It was that dark. So it must have been 11 o'clock. I think it was actually, because I think we'd been drinking in Towering anyhow, because there was a beer tent put on as well. And it just sounded absolutely amazing. And that will forever stick in my mind. And I also was there when it double-headed with number 4, and I think it was the Narrow Gauge Railway Society had decided to have its AGM that weekend at Towern as well. I always remember it packed and sitting in the Corris coach, basically on the steps. And that's the bogie coach, Luke. Yeah, I always remember sitting in the steps because the seats were full, and that's where I sat for the whole ride up to Abergynolwyn. And I'd love to know where my photographs are, because I cannot find them for love nor money.
The first time I ever visited the TR, I travelled in the Corris coach, and I sat on the middle seat. Because you've got the 2 compartments either side, and there's just the middle seat, and there's just no door; it's just open. And I sat there reading very old engines, which I just bought from the shop, and that was my first day on the TR, like just as a visitor. It was lovely.
That was good, because the very next trip we did that day was Tallyclin and Dolgoch double heading as well.
Oh, lovely.
But again, I'd love to know where my photographs have gone, because I can't find them. Probably on an old computer that died or something. So. But yeah, my memories, as I said, my memory of number 3 in the darkness will forever live with me. It sounded superb. Really did.
Lovely. No, I was just going to say, because obviously some people won't know this, Ben, you're a fireman at the East Lancs, but you're also a driver at Ribble, so you have experience on locos. Didn't you said to me before you've driven number 6, Douglas, otherwise known as Duncan, haven't you, at one point?
Yeah, it was every now and then. Luke knows this very well. They do driver for a tenner, and just happened to be one weekend I was down there, and it was number 6 was the engine, and it was great to have a go on it. And it's certainly, I can understand just that, again, that short section from the wharf up to Penrith. It hammers home the story rock and roll, because that thing does it likes to rock side to side. But it's no surprise. One, it's a four wheeler, and even four wheelers in standard gauge have a bit of a yawing gait to them, because the drive is to the back wheels. And as the pistons are doing this in the cylinders, that's where the motion comes from. It's a short wheelbase, so it sort of exaggerates that movement. But it's just, again, the thing with the engine was you could still feel smoothness in it. That's its natural movement, but it was so quiet. The throttle was lovely and responsive, and the brake was a joy as well. I mean, yes, it's a light engine, so it's a lot easier without having 20, 30, 50 odd tons of travel. Go on, Luke. How heavy are your trains? Say you have a 5-car set behind you, roughly.
I need to know this. And I don't.
I'm going to say you regard.
I can't remember, honestly, because is
it roughly about 35 ton for say a 4-car set?
Maybe. It's, to be fair, we don't usually go by ton. We go by what we class as bogies.
Right. Yep.
So say we might have like a 4.5 bogey train. So that might be 3 bogey coaches and 3 four-wheelers, because 2 four-wheelers makes 1 bogey.
Yeah.
And 1 four-wheeler is a half bogey. So we don't generally talk in tons when you're talking about it. It's like, oh, you've got a 5 bogey set or a 5.5 bogey set.
Yeah. Obviously, on the standard gauge stuff, it's all in tons, so you roughly take a mark one around an average of about 35 tons, for argument's sake, at top weight. Yeah. So, as you know, Luke, having been crewed with me at Ribble, 3-car sets, 105 tons. So, but yeah, there is a difference from light engine movement to running with a train, but number 6 was a joy to be on.
I've driven number 6 and number 4. Number 6 is very much like that, but number 4 was so smooth. Just picks up really nicely, just agreeable. Number 4 is a very agreeable engine, but very, very warm in the cab.
And this sums up Awdry's characterisation. Peter Sam's lovely. We all love Peter Sam.
Very agreeable.
Very agreeable. Apparently, and you'll know this, and I've heard this from a couple of crew, that number 4, Edward Thomas, and number 6, Douglas, will run on anything.
Pretty much. You look at number 6 funny and it'll steam.
Unlike his character.
No, I say you look at number 6 funny, blows a safety valve.
Gonna say, what is it? I'm overworked and I can't stand it. So
it's very good.
So with them, sort of obviously, Luke and I are modelling the Skarloey. We've sort of discussed this, sort of jokingly, but I think we'll have to try and do it. Is try and join our layouts together at some point.
Yeah.
Luke's working on Croven's Gate. Got something to show.
Yeah, the board.
Thank goodness your engine weren't on there.
Yeah, so you've got this is the wall that goes against the standard gauge here.
Yeah. So
there's a little cutout there, and Skarloey will be about here, and that's where the siding where Edward stands on. So that's that there.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And
quick question, Luke.
Yeah.
The wagon turntables, are you going to motorise them or anything?
If I can, I will. I was thinking about it. If not at first, it's something that can easily be added later, because the pits are cut anyway.
Yeah.
And am I right? You might look to extending along the line at some point, Luke?
So essentially where it cuts off for the scenic break is the bridge out to the rest of the line. So I might end up adding a little extra section on for the cutting, and I might, cut the distance a bit and maybe have Krasnokirin station
That is lovely.
along the side. So that's
I love the whitewash sort of interior. Really like that.
Yeah, like I say, it's all based on, well, it's based on Riederönen on the TR, and it's very much the same. All the buildings have a white interior.
How did you do the name board? Is that just written in hand?
That is, yeah, just written in hand.
Lovely.
That's beautiful.
Well, like as you two know, my plan is I'm doing Skarloey Station. Well, that's my plan. But as I mentioned privately to Luke before that I am going to look to extend to do the Ben Glass Quarry as well, and maybe have an interpretation of the incline. That'd be quite nice. So you just need to do something now, Ben.
Well, the only thing I've got is the Pico branch lines kit for to do Skarloey.
Oh,
and then the only other kit that I've got, which will end up being Duke,
Lovely.
which is motorised. And they've turned up. I think you've both seen them, the nameplates with Duke on. I've got a set of work plates which will go nicely on there. I can't find the number plates that I've ordered for Skarloey, so I'm wondering whether I actually did order them or not. But I will have something. The problem is as you guys probably know, and others might be aware, in 7mm, which is what the scale I'm modelling, the company Right Lines ceased trading, sold off to another company, and I think a lot of models out there miss the kits. There isn't anyone else, as far as I'm aware, that do Dolgok. You can get a Chorus Falcon from Mercian Models, which might be on my list to do. At least I could do Sir Handel. But yeah, there's no Edward Thomas, there's no number 5 Midlander, and certainly not a Douglas either. So yeah, I do miss the kits. But what I did get recently, I did manage to get hold of 3 Right Lines carriage kits, so I at least can do part of the original train. So one of them has been started. There's no interior. The other 2 are still as new, if you like. I'm still in kit part. So I've got some carriages there. So I'll eventually get around to doing something. So yeah, I need to tidy the attic up a bit, I think, and then go from there. But yeah, that's my modelling at the moment.
lovely. The route, the line. I think we've sort of discussed this privately before. It's longer than the TR. I think, Luke, we discussed this. TR, is it 7.5?
7.25.
7.25. I think we roughly worked out that Skarloey is probably about 11, maybe 12.
Around that, yeah, I'd say like 11. If we want to have parallel, 11.25.
So obviously, I'd say probably one of the most different areas is actually the Crovens Gate area, because you have that mainline connection.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I remember the first time I went to the TR, I was quite, I'm not going to say disappointed. I have never been disappointed with the TR. But I was like, oh, where's the mainline connection? And then, of course, it was planned at one point, wasn't it? The TR was...
It would be very different. But they were going to build another railway. It was because railway number 1 is Towyn Wharf to Abergynolwyn and obviously now Wernol. Railway number 2 was going to be Towyn Wharf to Towyn Mainline Station. So I've got a handy thing here.
Oh yeah.
So actual Towyn Wharf is essentially, you've got this here, and ignore all this way. So it goes down, and you've got your main line that runs past here, and the main line station's like a 5-minute walk that way. And the station platform, like there wasn't even a platform originally, there was a station building there, and you get the trains there. So yeah, and what they were planning to do was, so you'd come down, and then to get to the station, the train would reverse out this way, and then continue on down there to the mainline station.
It would propel its stock.
Pretty much, yeah. It's really weird, but obviously it never went through.
So am I right then that Crovan's Gate is a complete sort of, that is a complete Awdry creation? The Crovan's Gate station.
It's a mix of things, because you've got the actual, as I showed that corner of my Crovan's there, that's the actual layout of Towing Wharf. But then you get Pendray, which is the loco sheds and carriage sheds, and that's kind of turned like 90 degrees and put next to it. And then there's the fictional mainline connection, which is sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so with Crovan's Gate engine sheds, you've got, the Skarloey engine shed is brick rather than stone.
Stone, yes.
There was the little sort of shack where Skarloey lives on the TR, where poor Taliclin number 1 was sort of left there, but that was on the opposite side of the running line, wasn't it?
It wasn't directly next to the shed like it is in the books, but it is very much the same kind of thing.
And then obviously then engines run. The best plan really, sadly we discussed it before, you can't look at the book, is because it's been out of print for 30 years, is Island of Sodor, which has those 2 great track plans. One of, is it 1867 Crovan's Gate? And
1865.
1865, and then 1965 as a contrast.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll see if I can.
1865.
Here we go.
Again, poor lighting in here, but that's the page in question.
If we just pop on, can you see that on my screen now, actually, Tom?
I can, yeah.
There we are.
I can see it. I don't know if it'll show up on the video when we put it on.
Well, we'll see. So yeah, so this is, so it's saying the area here was all built by May 1865, and the rest of this was done by October 1865. So that's that, and then you've got the Sodor and mainland up here, S&M, and then if we just scroll down,
this is the 1960s view, isn't it?
Yeah, this is showing development since 1965. So you've got the same wharf there, you've got the exchange sidings, but you've now got a carriage and workshop, engines and workshops there. The engine shed is obviously double track. You've got the extra little one for Skarloey, and then you've got a turntable out the back. This is now a road bridge, and there's just a lot more going on.
What I like with that plan, and hopefully our viewers can see this, I think it should do. Oh, could you put it back on? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I was going to say a couple of things I really like with that. Hold on. There we go. I like how you have the crossover from the mainline station over to the sidings. I'm guessing on the Vickerstown platform and Barra platform, that I reckon must be a double slip, would you say, rather than a crossover?
Potentially, yeah.
Stuff can go straight.
I don't think it'd be a double slip, Tom. Well, it might be, but
it
would seem a bit weird because you'd be wrong line running. So unless there was a necessity to do that, they wouldn't have put it in.
So
just
it'd
for
be
ease of maintenance and building it.
So it'd be more a diamond.
Yeah, or a single slip.
Sorry, I meant single slip, because then you could cross over and be on the left. If you were going out, say you were going from the siding to the works, you could then slip across keep onto the left-hand track.
Yeah, it's still a bit strange because it's a facing point, and there's one, I can't remember which engineer it was, but many years ago an engineer once said that the worst thing ever to have was a facing point on the main line. That's why whenever possible you'd have trailing points. Yeah. So it just seems a bit of a slight anomaly to have.
I just wish that there was more track plans. That's the only track plans in iOS. It's frustrating that there isn't more.
Yeah.
So obviously then from Crovan's Gate, you're off up the line, and our next station is Crosney Curran. Is that right? Off the top of my head.
Yeah, first station.
Yeah.
So you start
Yes,
Craven's
yeah.
Gate, and
And
then
of
you
course,
Crosney Curran.
there was a incline worked tramway that went. Well, it went all the way. Was it from Kirk Ronan up to Ward Fell and up to Benglass Quarry?
From Crosney Curran, it went up to Benglass Quarry. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the original before the Skarloey Railway was built.
Yes, and it went, and then from Crosney Curran, it worked down to Crovan's Gate and went all way down to Kirk Ronan, didn't it?
Ballardwale.
Ballardwale.
Oh, sorry, that's near Kirk Ronan, isn't it?
No.
It's like a.
Ben's got the map out. Look at him now.
Yeah.
Hold on.
There's two little land masses that pop out with the river, and Ballardwale's closer to Crovan's Gate than Kirk Ronan. But in the 1860s, Kirk Ronan became a bigger port, and that's why the S&M built down there.
Here we are. We've got our maps out. There we are. Hey, both got the same one out. Right.
Mine's in a drawer somewhere, so I'm not going to get mine, sadly.
That's all right. Sorry. Yeah, I was completely out. I hold my hands up there. Yes, it's almost like the outcrop that sticks out between Kirk Ronan and Norranby.
Yeah. So Crosney Curran's the next station, and that from Sudrian translates to the ford of the Mountain Ash. And if you look at Crosney Curran's real life counterpart, Ridironan, on the Talyllyn, that translates from Welsh into English to Ashford.
I was going to ask you if it's an.
So yeah, the station essentially means the same thing, just worded a bit different.
And sorry, Luke, carry on.
I was going to say, and then after Crosney Curran, you've got Glennock, which is the next station.
Which I was about to say. This is the bit where you have your. This is where inspiration is taken from elsewhere rather than the. Because after Crosney Curran, you've got the open moorland section, which there's a wonderful illustration in Gallant Old Engine with Rheneas on that moorland section. When I think he has his accident with his valve gear jamming.
Yes.
And of course, then we get to Glennock. And Glennock, you won't... Well, I suppose location-wise, it's like Bringlass.
Yeah, it's equivalent to Bringlass on the Talyllyn.
But it's actually based on... Now, my pronunciation. Is it Oh, hold on. Let me just...
Abergavenny.
Abergavenny, isn't it? Yes. Sorry, I was...
Abergavenny.
If I have pronounced that wrong, and there's any Welsh listeners, I do apologise. And if you ever find, there are some photos online. If you look at Abergavenny, it is exactly Glennock.
Yeah, Abergavenny station, because it's got the little chapel built next to it.
It has, which if you look at the Dolby illustration in Four Little Engines, when Peter Sam had left the refreshment lady, she's got in, and he's having to stop at stations to get back to Crovan's Gate because he's worried about missing Henry's connection. There's a beautiful illustration, and I've seen the photograph of Abergavenny that Dolby's used as the reference material, and it's pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah. So, and again, like Crosney Curran and Ridironan, Bringlass, which is the one on the Talyllyn, and Glennock both mean the same thing. So Glennock from Sudric to English means Blue Hill, and so does Bringlass in English. They both mean Blue Hill, which is potentially, for some people who might be more familiar with the TV series, where Blue Mountain Quarry, that whole thing, they might have got the name inspiration from that. Which I think is a nice little touch if they did. And
then, of course, as we work northwards, we then get to the feature which obviously is not present on the Talyllyn. And again, was it one of those things when I visited the Talyllyn for the first time, I was like, oh, where's the tunnel? Well, there isn't a tunnel, but there is on the Skarloey. And I think if you look at the illustrations of the tunnel in Little Old Engine when Duncan gets stuck, it often reminds me of some of the tunnels on the Welsh Highland, the ones on the what's the valley called? Is it Aberglass?
Aberglasslyn Pass.
Yeah.
Pass. I imagine that tunnel, the Glennock tunnel, is just cut into the rock.
Yes, yeah. Looking at the illustrations, it very much looks like that to me. And I'm just reading as well. It's saying the tunnel section's 3 miles long.
That's quite a length.
Yeah, 3 mile section is the one most subject to the weather's vagaries. The incidents recorded in very old engines, little engines, and great old engines are typical of many others. The line is more sinuous than indicated on the map. The tunnel is short but curved, so that on entering it is impossible to see right through it, and does have warning of obstructions. It is also unlined and subject to seepage. This sometimes loosens rock fragments. Icicles also form here in frosty weather.
Sorry, I'd read that as meaning the tunnel's 3 miles. No, it's the section.
The section of the line's 3 miles. North of the tunnel, the line runs along a ledge and is subject to washouts after heavy rain. Regular inspection is therefore necessary and inevitably under the worst conditions, hence the adjectives used to describe it.
Would you say, Luke, that sums up the section of the TR before you get to Dolgoch?
It's a lot more hazardous here, it sounds, especially with the tunnel. With the way it's saying the line's far more sinuous, it reminds me of a little place on the TR called Six Bends, which is exactly that, and it is quite on a ledge and you've got a rock face next to you. So I feel like it is kind of in place of Six Bends, mainly because you've got quite a twisty-turny thing, a bit of line and hills which climb. Because coming out of Bringlass, you have tadpole cutting which goes up. Then you go on to Six Bends around that, and then up Dolderhuth Bank up to Dolgoch Woods, and then the viaducts, and then the station. So I feel like you've got a much longer section in between the two stations there, which is probably where the route discrepancies of length come into play. I feel like it's this section that adds a few more miles. But yeah, it essentially sounds like those sections on the TR, but in just far more extreme.
It almost sounds like if it's bad weather and if you travel that day, you might die.
Yeah.
And of course, we sorry, if anyone sees, I'm looking down. I've got my Island of Sodor. Have you got yours there, Ben?
I have, yes.
Yeah. Ben, yours is signed by Wilbert and George, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is. Had this since I was 17 as well.
And I think for both of us, it cost us a small fortune.
I just have the lowly PDF. I'm yet to get it.
One day you'll find.
Still the same though, Luke. It's still the same.
Absolutely.
I still want it.
And it's one of those. You could just go into a charity shop one day. Well, actually, I know you've said before from your work, you're desperately looking to see if one crops up, and I'm sure at some point one will. Just not on eBay. You don't want it on eBay.
Unless you get 2 copies.
Yeah.
Ben, ever the entrepreneur, Ben. He's already thinking. One on.
But yeah. So after the tunnel, you get to Rheneas, not the loco, the place.
Yes, which is pretty much exactly Dolgoch, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. So you come out off the tunnel section once you finish climbing. There's a big gorge, and you've got the viaduct, which is always just gorgeous, and it looks brilliant in reality and in the books.
I do love the photo of number 1 that's in Talyllyn crossing the bridge. It's the earliest photo, isn't it, with the weatherboard when there was no.
Yes.
And I love it because it's so open. There's hardly any trees, and it's just so, you could see the viaduct so clearly back then.
Mm. I'm just reading the iOS here, and it's exactly the same as the TR. All up trains take water here while ticket inspection is going on. And that's exactly how we do it at the TR as well, at Dolgoch Station, which is the equivalent to Rheneas.
For those with...
Quick question, Luke. Showing my ignorance here. Is there a cafe at Dolgoch?
If you've got a station master, the station master can sell drinks and snacks, and that's it. There's a cafe if you walk down from the station.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Dolgoch Hotel, which has got a lovely little cafe, which is just a short walk from the station.
See, it's funny because I've walked up to the waterfall, but I've never gone in the other direction. And I've filmed with a few friends of mine, again a few years ago now. Trains coming over the viaduct into Dolgok Station, but I've never walked the other way down. And for some reason, I couldn't remember if there was a cafe there or not, because of course in iOS, it Awdry says about the cafe as well. And I thought, I wonder if that bit was a bit different, but obviously not. No.
That's what I was about to ask. Because it says the walk.
The Falls Hotel, yeah.
The walk down the gorge and under the viaduct is an impressive one, and a meal at the Falls Hotel suitably rounds off a pleasant excursion. The hotel gives good service and excellent cuisine, but is somewhat pricey. For those with shallow purses, the Gorge Cafe provides self-service lunches, teas and snacks. The cafe owns a field adjoining their premises, which is a licensed camping site. Part has been laid out as a picnic area. And it goes on to say there is no village at Reneus. I presume that's the same at Dolgok.
Yeah, pretty much. There's nothing there apart from the hotel and the falls. Oh, I lie. Actually, there are. I think there's a little farm. What used to be a farm, and there are a couple of houses, but it's hardly a village. It's mainly the hotel and then this little farm.
And it says Reneus can be reached on foot from Skarloey Station by a pleasant walk through the woods, 2 miles. Alternatively, there is an equally attractive and well-marked footpath from Glennock, 6 miles. Follow besides the railway till you reach the bridge over the Howindui, then drop down to the river and follow its bank till the path joins from Skarloey. What's interesting there is, alternatively, there is an equally attractive and well-marked footpath from Glennock, 6 miles. Follow besides the railway. So is that suggesting that from Reneus to Glennock 6 miles? Because if it is, that's quite a distance.
Well, I feel it's probably not as much because you follow the rail until you reach the bridge, and then you follow the river, and then you come back up.
Right. Okay.
So I feel like there's more added on then. So I'd say it's probably at most like, because the tunnel section's 3 miles, as it was said before, but I feel there might be a little bit more. So probably like, I'd say at least 4 miles between the two stations.
Yeah. So as we continue on, we well, actually, here's some little reference points for people. Is that at Reneus Viaduct and the Gorge during the TV broadcast of 1958, which is in Little Old Engine. Duncan stalls on the viaduct in 1961 in Gallant Old Engine. Skarloey has to come to his rescue in the same story. Reneus sometime during the lean years taking water at Reneus Station, which is the cover image of Gallant Old Engine. And Reneus is seen at the station in 1965 with the Centenary train. So again, some nice little reference points into that. And then we get on to Lakeside Junction, formerly Quarry Sidings, which I know, Luke, you're not a fan of the lakeside.
It's fine, but I'm stuck in my ways. But it is nice that it's different.
It is, and for both of us, we're modelling before that anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But you have essentially where Quarry Siding is, which is the same as the Quarry Siding on the TR. This is then what is where it's the end. It's when the loop starts. So if I'm correct, post 65, engines would take the junction and go around the lake and then come back to Skarloey Station, and then they're facing Crovan's Gate because they've done a loop.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, because you would do that because Skarloey would still be the penultimate, like the final station.
Yes.
Which makes sense because that's got all the facilities.
Because it mentions here that Quarry Siding, it served, the ballast dug here was never really satisfactory, but it was cheap and readily available. It served well enough during the lean years, but heavier traffic demanded better. So since 1954, ballast has been obtained from the NWR. So am I right that the TR used the stone from Quarry Siding for the same purpose as ballast?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And then we go on to the loop line began in 1963, was completed in time for the centenary celebrations in June 1965. It runs around and above the lake on a ledge cut in the hillside among the trees. There is one station lakeside which serves as a picnic area. The opening ceremony took place here, where the 4 tracks enabled the various trains containing VIPs, and then that's that lovely illustration where you've got Peter, Sam, Rheneas, and Skarloey's facing you, and the Duke stood on the front end of Skarloey in his speech.
Yeah, you've got your 4 roads there,
which Clive Spong does not illustrate in Duncan's Pop Special.
Yeah, he does a really weird illustration. It implies that you can't get to Skarloey. It just goes, it's a balloon, essentially. It's really weird.
And the references here, Peter, Sam and Sir Handel pass at Quarry Siding in 1958. Little Old Engine, 47. Ah, yes, it's the first illustration of Little Old Twin, where they're both having a bit of a worry because they think they're going to be sold again.
Yeah.
And then we get on to Skarloey, which, again, a station building and probably track plan is Abergynolwyn, but actual scenically wise, it's quite different because it's completely open. And for a long time, as I was thinking about modelling Skarloey Station, I couldn't picture it. And actually, it was Ben is the one that sort of said, it's a lip of a volcano. It's a lip of a crater, essentially, surrounded by trees. And that's why you can see the lake. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, pretty much. As I say, when you look at the map and you see how the track is, and then you read the description in iOS, it became, a little bit obvious. Whereas you've got Abergynolwyn, and you get off the train and you look to your right-hand side, and you've got like the rock face there. That isn't there. That's looking down into the lake itself, into the hidden sanctuary, if you will. And of course, it's still open a little bit at the back of the station, but behind there, because behind there, you're sort of looking almost southwards, so you're looking down the valley. To your left, or as the track continues, that's when it heads towards Bringlass.
Bringlass.
No. Wardfell.
Yeah. That's the best quarries.
Yeah, which is where the quarry is. Yeah.
You could stand on Skarloey Station, and in one direction you're looking at the lake. The other direction, you could, if you got off and your train was heading back down to Crovansgate, you could probably follow your train and see the whole train going down the valley.
Yeah, quite possibly on a clear day.
I bet on a real foggy day, you wouldn't see a thing. You just look down there, just nothing. Sodor suffers with some of the same weather that North Wales and Mid Wales does.
Or even the Lake District.
Anywhere where there's mountains, yeah. And then obviously there's a few differences here. This is a funny one, is that you read what Awdry wrote about Skarloey Station, and then you look at the maps, and the maps don't match. Skarloey basically infers, like Abergynolwyn, that the line continues onto the Quarry Tramway. The maps show the junction being before the station, which I'm not a fan of, and I know Luke's not a fan of either. So we go with what Awdry wrote in the actual description.
Yeah.
And then there is a winding house, like Abergynolwyn has, which the trains would pass under. Well, I say trains, the engines with their wagons stop. Essentially, the winding house goes to the opposite side, hills, the one that Abergynolwyn would. And then there's a small goods area there for like local goods that need to go to Skarloey Station, etc. And then you're onto the tramway. Gate and actually, for me, this is one of the most interesting bits. Is what happens to the quarry, because it was a slate quarry, but obviously that changes. I've got my iOS. Would someone else like to read the bit about the quarry line?
Just have a look then. So as we were saying, the line from the Skarloey Station carries on, but it is now a forbidden area
Ooh.
In 1960, the Ministry of Defence bought the quarry. In World War II, they had already used the quarries as an ammunition storage for safeguarding, and after that, were conferring with the Skarloey Railway to buy it, to use as a permanent ammunition store, an ammunition dump. When Peter Sam was, when the trucks come down the incline and smash and break the funnel and all that, that was on one of the last trips when they were clearing out all of the slate from the quarry and removing everything for the Ministry of Defence to move in. So once all that was done, I think that was in 1958. Yes.
Yeah, 58 was, yeah.
Yeah, so once that was all cleared up and everything, the sale was bought in 1960. So it's now got a gate, and it's got a wire perimeter fence with double lock gates. It says Ministry of Defence, Government Property, Keep Out. Skull and crossbone plaques attached to intervals to the fence all round emphasise the perils of unwise trespassing. The engines have to obey this order as well. They bring up the loads up to the gates, uncouple and scurry away backwards as though fearful of being detected in the committing of some heinous crime. So he said once the Skarloey loco is away and outside, the gates open and a black beetle-like electric locomotive appears, pushing a rate of empty vans. These are left on a siding. The black beetle loco couples to the loaded vans and draws them away. The gates shut and are locked electronically. While the beetle takes its load to a secret destination. Only then may a Skarloey Railway engine venture out to remove the empty vans. So it's all very under lock and key.
It is, and then of course, and we see one of these trains when Sir Handel is bringing empties back down from the MOD site when he has his incident with George.
So if it was a train going up full of loaded ammunition, could have ended very differently.
And that was the end of Sir Handel. Rest in pieces.
And George.
And George. Yeah. Well, George, he's miserable anyway. So thankfully, yeah. And that pretty much is that is the Skarloey Railway. And yeah, I find it fascinating. I mean, like I say, I love this quarry line. And there's a reference there. The quarry line is now, as we said above, a forbidden area. The tumble down gate with its trespassers W and then it fades off sign, so faded as to be but a feeble detriment, have both gone. So that'd be a nice one for me to put on my gate there. Trespassers, and then have it faded off. That'd be quite nice. But yeah, and also the funds from the sale funded the.
What? Sorry, Tom.
The funds from the sale of the quarry. I've often thought also, was there some MOD money that came in during the war and things? That's what kept the Skarloey Railway going.
I feel like there would be money for using the even though it's a requisition of the land. I do feel like there was probably a little bit of payoff to keep it going.
Yeah.
So they could actually store their ammunition.
But yeah, I think it's a fascinating line, and Island of Sodor makes it so the Island of Sodor book documents it very well. Of course, as we've always said, there's more questions it leaves. There's things we'd love to ask Wilbert, but sadly we can't.
Yeah, I feel it does show how much Wilbert very much loved writing the Skarloey stuff, considering actually how much there is in the Island of Sodor about it. Like, he did a whole route survey.
Yes. Detailing
the entire route that we've just been through, whereas doesn't do it for anything near that for the main line of the standard gauge.
No, not at all.
You do get obviously notes about every place, but that's pretty much it. There are lots of notes and history, but you never get full kind of description of the main line.
I think that helps from the fact that he was an active volunteer and one of the early
100%.
volunteers. I think it was his membership number 71, 72, something like that.
It's in the 70s. I was going to say 79, but I think it might be earlier. But it's definitely he's member number 70 something.
And it just, the level of detail you can tell. But I think what helps is obviously the love of the TR that he had as well, to keep going back for a number of years to help out.
100%.
And it comes out in his writing. But you're certainly right, Luke. There's nowhere near that amount of descriptiveness for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a love for the TR, and then he sort of embellished it with his own, with the Skarloey. Which, yeah, and you know, the influence this has had, the legacy that Awdry created is, you know, we've discussed this before. The TR has a lot of young volunteers, in some ways more than other heritage railways have.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that is.
Well, I talk to a lot of, well, obviously because I volunteer there, I talk to a lot. There are obviously young volunteers who come of their own volition without really coming because of the Awdry stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, that's still completely fine. But you get a lot that come just because they've grown up with it in the books and the TV series. I'm talking to a chap who's in his 40s and he's got a son not much younger than me, probably I think he's 16, 17. And the dad is far more into the railway series than the son, and he's very like, oh, I've got framed illustrations up in my house. And it's the reason why I came down volunteering here, is because I knew of it from the books.
He's a man of good taste.
Yeah. And yeah, no, a lot of the drivers and firemen and just general staff all around will, you know, shouldn't give their testaments to it, because it has got a lot of people down to the railway volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that sums up this week's episode, gentlemen. Thank you. Unless there's anything else that either of you would like to add.
Oh, I think we've definitely gone over the route in detail.
But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to cracking on with my model of Sir Handel. What's your next one? Oh, I think I know what your next one's going to be.
A certain small diesel.
Yes, which I will be working on.
Alf. No, Rusty.
Oh, okay, it's Alf then.
No, Rusty's next on the cards.
Yeah.
Should be in the next few weeks.
You've got your chassis. Mine's literally at my at the sorting office, post office. So I'm looking forward to starting that. Ben, what are you working on at the moment, modelling wise, other than your
modelling
big engine, your real?
Yeah, my 12 inch to the foot scale. No, I've got a little rail bus, which is hidden away, which I've got the chassis to run at the moment. It's a branch lines rail bus. It's based on the Ford Model Ts that some of the Colonel Stevens railways were famed for using. I do have a standard gauge version of that as well. I'd like to get that finished, so I've just been bedded in the motor and the chassis just the last few days. And then I've still got the wagons to finish off. I've got some Pico wagons and vans. They just need lettering now and finishing off. And that's probably it at the moment.
Is that the ones that
once they're done and sorry, Tom, go on.
Is that the ones that I saw? Those blue vans. They were really nice. I like those. That blue. Did you use gold?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Oh, hang on. I've got a wagon box here.
Because I like those. Because I think that for me, it's like the mid Sodor blue.
Yeah, that's one of the wagon boxes there for the open wagons, which I've done in grey just to be a bit different. The vans themselves, just bear with me, if I can reach one. Sorry, guys, they're coupled up. I can't just lift them all up. No, yeah, the from the Pico range anyhow for 16.5 gauge, so the narrow gauge vans, and I've done the vans deliberately in blue, but that's because I want to model a little bit of the mid Sodor, so I was going to use them as like luggage vans or just important merchant vans because they've got back pipes on them as well. So But yeah, I got the transfer, so they just need him, and then go from there. But I've got all sorts. I've got as you've seen, Tom. I think I've shown you in pictures, Luke, as well. I've got all sorts of other kits to do. So I've got a whiz beach and upwell tramway carriage to do, both the bogie and the four wheeler. An E2 tank, just a variety of carriages and brake vans, really. So enough to keep me going while we're on lockdown, anyhow.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I was going to say I think we've all got plenty of time to, obviously.
I somehow don't think I'll get onto my my A1 Pacific anyhow. That's then that'll be a long time off before I start that one.
I don't know if lockdown or go, but I might have done a Skarloey fleet at this rate. But actually, I won't have done because I can't do Skarloey because the narrow planet detailing bit is out of stock. But I can do Rheneas. So,
well, if it wasn't for the lockdown or whatever, I'd be trying to get on with them with the big one a bit more. And I've got the water tank to do, and the cab roof needs to be replaced, which I've got the metalwork for. But yeah, I daren't set off up to my uncle's in case I get stopped by the cop. So I'll be a good boy. I'll just do what I've got in the garage to do, and then obviously what modelling I can do. So
yes, I'm sorry,
got plenty to get on with.
I'm sorry, officer, but this is essential work I'm doing on my So,
it's for transport.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and yes, and
Thank you.
That's episode 2 of Awdry Corner concluded. So, thank you for watching, and take care.
bye.
Cheers out.